Hello, all my merry makers, and welcome to a Merry Making Monday. Before we get into today's tutorial, I've got some house cleaning, maintenance, whatever you want to call it. Um, I had somebody reach out to me during Thriss's live last night about doing a tutorial for baby bootings. Um, and I forgot to ask Pinky if she, don't know, um, knitted or crocheted. So I've got plenty of patterns that I am willing to go over. Um, if people are, other than Pinky, would like to learn how to do baby booties, please let me know if you want knit, crochet, both. Um, the simplest one that I know of, you can either knit or crochet. Literally, it is you make a 20-inch square and then sew the ends, which I can also do a tutorial on if people are interested in. What was the other thing? Oh, I went to Walmart today. Big, no big news, but I picked up some yarn. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Summer Nights yarn by Lion Brand. This was like the last one they had. And since it's so thin, where's my camera? There it is. I bought this to go with it. And I thought that is going to be a nice blue shawl someday. I don't know when, just someday. Um, and then last but not least, um, I don't know how this happened, DK. Hello, focus. It says that your comment was deleted. I did not do that. Um, so I can only assume that YouTube did that for some reason. I did not do that. So I apologize that your comment got deleted. I know how frustrating that can be when you comment something and you're trying to be interactive with somebody and that happens because YouTube gets a stick up their butt. I wonder if I'll get demoted for that. Anyway, so today we are going to talk about how to size a hat. Um, I'm going to try to phrase things in both knit and crochet terms. This is going to be a lot of me just talking. I do have a table that I'm going to be sharing with you. If you don't like this particular table, there are lots of tables out there. Literally, all you have to do is go into your search bar and put hat size for knitting or hat size for crochet, whichever one you do. And it will, there's tons. There's tons. You'll have your pick of the litter. So, oh, I didn't talk about the specs on that yarn. Okay, sorry, my brain is all over the place today because today's busy. I have to apologize for the way I look. I did not come out of the shower. It did a flash rain outside, even though it kind of looks kind of sunny now too. For those of you not familiar with this yarn, Summer Nights is mostly acrylic. Come on, why can I never find these things when I want to? Yes, 82% acrylic, 18% polyester, number one weight. Yeah. Super fine. And then this is the Mainstays 100% cotton. It's a 4 medium. No, I don't know what pattern I'm going to use yet. So, all right. So, this is the chart. Now, of course, optimally, it would be nice if I could hold it straight, that would be nice. But it would be nice if you could actually measure the person's head in person. That is always the best. Wow, I just got really loud with that. Sorry. But if you don't know how to measure, or they live in another state, or whatever That's this I feel is a nice um, starting point. So I'm going to say a couple things that some people don't like. Whenever you're making something that is a wearable, I feel like it's very important to make a swatch. Um, if you're going to knit it flat and then join it later, do your swatch flat. If you're going to knit in the round, do your gauge in the round. I know some people see it as a hassle, and I know with some yarns, if you try to take them out, they snarl terribly. So you feel like you're wasting yarn, but I promise you, you will thank yourself if you do a swatch when you're doing a wearable. Because even though this says, for example, on this yarn, that it requires, or not requires, but suggestion is to use size 5mm knitting needle or hook, also known as an 8, on both sides. This is a great yarn for example. So let's say I pull out my 5mm or my 8, and I start knitting with it, or I start crocheting with it, and my gauge is too big, or my gauge is too small, or I'm not working found my pattern, I'm just doing whatever. You need to know how many stitches per an inch, or per centimeter is even better, especially if you're doing a smaller hat. I'm looking at that chart again, and it has it in inches. You can do a conversion really easily from inches to centimeters. I like to say there's an app for that. But like, even though it kind of gives you an idea what your gauge should be on this, not all stitches are created equal. And not all yarn is created equal. Like cotton stretches and then doesn't come back. Whereas acrylic and wool, they have a little bit of elasticity. So you got to keep that in mind too. So let's just say, for example, this says it has 17 stitches for 4 inches or 13 single crochets for 4 inches. That's another thing. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be sitting here dividing 17 by 4. I'm going to be dividing 16 by 4, which means it's about 4 stitches per inch knitting, and then same with crochet. I'm not going to do 13 divided by 4. I'm going to do 12 divided by 4, which means about 3 single crochets per inch. So there's 2 ways to go about this. A lot of people, when they're making a hat, especially since they're not really comfortable to increase as they go, they like to start at the bottom up. It really is the easiest way to go, because whether you're knitting or you're crocheting, once you know what your gauge is, you do some simple math. And yes, I know math is not a lot of our fortes. But for example, let's say I was knitting a hat for myself. I'm an adult. No, yes, I am an adult. I have actually a medium-sized head, medium small. And that's another thing. You've got different sizes for adults. Like my brother, I would guarantee you his head is actually closer to 24 inches. He got a big old head. Pray for my mama. But anyway, so let's just make the math easy and say I was doing 20. So since there are 4 stitches per inch, I would cast on 80 stitches because that's 4 stitches, 20 inches. 4 times 20 is 80. Which lines up to what my experience has been with medium 4 weight yarn making a hat in that size. And then you go for as tall as you want to go. Now for the 20 inches, it suggests 6.5 to 7 inches before you start decreasing. And again, that's going to depend on what your gauge is. Here it says it's 23 rows for 4 inches as far as going up goes. Again, I'm not going to do 23 divided by 4. I'm going to do 24 divided by 4, which is 6. So 6 rows per an inch. So if I'm going to be making my hat a little bit longer because it's for me, and I know that I like my hats a little bit longer because I like my ears to be fully covered. It's a thing. Then if I say I'm going to go 7 inches, or let's even make it 6 inches, 6.5 inches before I start decreasing, and my overall hat height is going to be 8.5 inches, that gives me 12 rows to decrease. And then I have to think about, okay, so I've got 80 stitches and 12 rows to decrease. So how many decreases do I need to do? So, okay, 80 is not divisible by 12, but 80 is divisible by 10. See, my brain likes simple math, guys. I'm sorry if it bugs you. So that's the math I'm going to do. So let's see, if I'm doing 10 rows and I have 80 stitches, that means I am going to decrease every 10 inches the first time, or every 10 stitches the first time, and then every 9 stitches, and every 8 stitches, every 7 inch, you get the picture, until you have a small amount of stitches left on your crown. Forgot the word there for a second. And then you leave a long tail and loop it through and tie it off. And you do the same thing with knitting as well. You just have to do the math. The other way to do a hat is from the top down. I have more experience with this on the crochet side than the knit side, but I would assume that it still stands. So I'm going to be using basically the same numbers. So you can kind of see how the math works. So if I know that I need to end up with 80 stitches, I'm going to start with 8 stitches, either in my round or in my magic circle or on my hook, not my hook, my needles. And then I'm going to follow what I need to do to make a flat circle. Now, I can do a separate tutorial on how to crochet and knit a flat circle because this is already 15 minutes long. So if I start with 8 stitches, then the next row is going to have 16. Then the next row is going to have 24. And then 32. You get the picture. Once I get 80 stitches, or close to 80 stitches, I do one more increase. Because I found that if I stop right there, it's just a little bit too small for me. Now your gauge may be different. This is why gauge is important. But I do one more round of increase, and then I stop increasing, and then just either crochet straight or knit straight, or follow whatever. And most patterns will have how many stitches you need to cast on or whatever. But here's where more math comes in. Say you didn't do a gauge, or like for my braided stitch hat, it's kind of hard to do a gauge when you're working with a puff stitch. So what do you do then? Because that is a top-down hat. So that's where, again, math comes in. So circumference is, in case y'all don't know, pi times your radius squared. So like for the beanie that I made, and I wish I would have brought it down because I'm just Vanna Whiting over here for no reason. I increased until my radius was 2.5 inches. Because 2.5 squared was, I forget. So we will break out the almighty calculator if my phone will cooperate with me for 2 seconds. And I don't, I just break out my calculator. 2.5 times 2.5, that's how you square, was 6.25 times pi, or 3.14. So almost 20 inches exactly. So I did one more increased row after that, and then I just did regular. I hope this makes sense to y'all. I hope this helps y'all. I will be including this as a screenshot at both the end and the beginning so that people have access to it. Again, Pinky, if you can somehow contact me and let me know what kind of tutorial you prefer for your baby booties, and I'll have that ready for you next week. And then we'll see you on Wednesday when we talk about my works in progress. Until then, my Merry Makers, make on.